Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Danny Chan. I am the Executive Secretary of the Southern California Conference. I'm also the Ministerial Director, which means that I oversee some of the pastoral development processes in our conference. In short, I think it means I'm a bit of a pastor's pastor. And in this podcast, what we're trying to do is to touch on some subjects that relate to ministry specifically, primarily pastoral ministry, but also if you're a ministry leader, you may engage in some of these topics. And over the last 30 years, believe it or not, it's been almost 30 years of ministry that I've had. There's a few things that I've noticed that just kind of rise to the top in terms of need or some good practices, some ministry stressors that I think it'd be good for us to unpack. So in this podcast, what we're trying to do is to address ministry concerns and to develop some healthy practices for ministry. And for that, I'm being joined today by my good friend Isaí. Isaí, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here and to get to have this conversation.
Excellent. We're so happy to have you here. I know that you have some experience of your own with podcasting, and
a little bit, yeah. Definitely not to this level at all yet, but yeah, I love podcasting.
Excellent. Just podcasting gives us just a little bit more extended time to talk about subjects and for people to listen on a kind of more informal setting. But we're trying to address some ministry stressors and some of the things that kind of weigh on us in ministry, and how to approach and how to have some good practices that help provide some boundaries for us. And I know that you have some experience. First of all, tell us a little bit about how when did you start here at Southern California Conference? What is your role, and how's that going?
Yeah, I definitely don't have almost 30 years in ministry. So thank you for saying I have some experience. I got to Southern California Conference here last August, started in September, and it's just such a exciting journey. I'm serving in the West Covina Seventh-day Adventist Church, associate pastor, working with the youth and young adults and evangelism team, among other ministries, but it's been an awesome time so far.
Excellent. And I was blessed to be part of that journey to bring you to Southern California, and we're so excited for the contributions that you're making and that you will continue to make as you continue your ministry. I know you have some pastoral ministry from before. You went to Andrews University. That's where I met you.
Yes.
And you started working for us here last year. But it sounds like you're not quite done with school. You're almost done. Is that right?
Yeah, my church knows it. That they're always seeing me finishing a quiz or doing some homework. I'll be finishing up here this summer in August with my master's in divinity. But alongside that, I'm also doing a master's in social work.
Wow. Yeah. So you're doing a dual degree.
I'm doing a dual degree, yes.
Wow. That sounds like fun studying, you know?
It is.
And paper writing for 2 master's degrees.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It's a lot. I think one of the things that I really thought of when I was first going to Andrews was really I wanted to get more out of school. And, you know, my undergrad professors in theology always told me, spend some time in ministry and then find out what you really want to hone in on in Andrews. And there were definitely things in theology that I wanted to grow in my understanding and my being able to teach and preach about. But I also learned in my time in my district before that I really wanted to provide better pastoral care. And really, pastoral ministry is shepherding. It's the ministry of people. We work with people. We provide care. And I realized that while my sermons could be well-informed theologically, I wanted to be well-informed in how I could provide care during the week, holistically, emotionally, mentally. And social work has really become a really powerful tool to be able to equip me to provide those kinds of cares.
Wow. So most people know that, you know, the Master's of Divinity is very specific to ministry, but somehow you felt while practicing in ministry that you could provide more, and social work provided that.
Absolutely.
Have you found the social work component to be helpful to you even as early as the last, few months in ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even just in awareness, so much of our young people go through challenging things that I didn't even have words for before, or just even understanding that there are bigger things that add up to traumatic experience, to adverse childhood experiences that, we see them nowadays, and you see a young person and you wonder, why are they cutting? Why are they going through all of these depressive thoughts or challenging situations, and anxieties,
Yeah.
exactly. So how can we even just address them, or address these mental situations, but also just being able to have those conversations, and being able to move forward and build relationships.
Wow. So I want to commend you, Isaí, for taking the initiative. It does take a lot more investment of time and effort to focus in on another degree concurrently. But it's amazing to see just how beneficial it can be to the kind of ministry that you provide to your members.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about how, well, you talked about some of the difficulties of growing up and some of the challenges, maybe even some of the traumas. How has exposure to trauma informed your calling, or even your desire to pursue a social degree?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I reflect on the more I've gone through the social work program and doing my internship at the trauma center at Andrews, I think it made me recognize in myself, of course, my own traumas, and recognize that really there is an intersection between my personal trauma and my call to ministry, and maybe even my call to social work, where I recognized that, when I was a junior in academy, I lost family members in a really tragic, traumatic way. I lost my uncle and my aunts, and 5 cousins overnight to a murder-suicide.
Wow.
And it was a really traumatizing experience, which is really trauma, and we'll get into that. Trauma is something that we still carry today, something that happened back then that we still carry today. Just like grief, we can't ever really get over grief, but we learn to heal and grow through grief as we grieve. But that traumatic experience really was something that I felt the most feelings, the most emotion, the most frustration and anger, fury towards God. But it was also what, in a way, like really drew me to reflect on what is my relationship with God. It's also what drew me to have some of the deepest friendships with my youth pastor at the time, who became my mentor when I was a young pastor, beginning pastor, to now being one of my closest friends, the people that were there for me. But that really made me challenge my spiritual life, made me challenge my belief in God. Now recognizing that it in a way, as tragic as it was, it did equip me. It gave me empathy for others who walk through really tragic and difficult situations. So it gave me a lens of seeing others in their pain, and just also being able to recognize that I needed healing, and finding the healing, and still even today finding the healing, and as I carry that with me.
Yeah. Isaí, thank you so much for being willing to share what must have been one of the most traumatic experiences in your life. And it's amazing to see that in the midst of that, you, despite some of the questions you had and frustrations and hurt, somehow you were still able to keep a positive outlook on your faith and your communication with God. How were you able to kind of navigate through that? You were 16 years old?
I was 16 years old. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. And I think like being able to own that it was hard, to recognize that it was hard, was really, it gave me the ability to be upset and to not, almost justifying my anger with God. But it also just helped me wrestle with it more. I wanted to turn away so bad from God. I wanted to just give up on faith, but really the way that I was giving up on faith was almost wrestling with it. Like, why would God, if there is a good God, why is he allowing this? And I would wrestle with that question more. But even in that, not so much the theological questions, although those questions always come up, but just also like having a good community. Like I mentioned, my youth pastors really would check in on me almost every day, take me out to eat, to go out to do something, even just to hang out and talk, to play guitar, to do the simplest things, to go to the park. But and some of my friends from academy just at that time just really showed up. Those were the ways that I feel like I was able to see the light, to be able to recognize that I could rise above it, in the sense that there is light, there's hope, there could have hope. Right. And even each one of my family members, we each dealt with it and talk about it in different ways, but it's a way that we help each other as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So Isaí, as we're talking about adverse experiences that we've had, and of course everyone's had them to different degrees, yes, and correct. I imagine that different people respond to them differently. We hear the word trauma a lot, right? How would you define what trauma is?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Trauma almost gets used around so much, like, that's traumatizing, I'm so traumatized. And each person, as we've mentioned, each person has their different ways of going through situations. But I think what I've found, what I've learned, is that trauma has a clear way of being defined, that while we go through challenging situations, we go through hard times, the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual for therapists, for psychologists, it defines it as when you go through, see, or learn about an event involving actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violation. A traumatic or life-threatening event that is outside the normal range of daily human experience. So there's a couple of things there that we can already pick out, that there's when you see, you visualize, when you see something, when you experience, when you even learn about it, when you learn about something that could actually be life-threatening, could be outside of the normal range, outside of what you go through your everyday situations. Bessel van der Kolk also defines it, leading traumatologist here in the United States. So, he defines it, he says that trauma is specifically an event that overwhelms the central nervous system, altering the way we process and recall memories. Trauma is not the story of something that happened back then. It's the current imprint of the pain, horror, and fear living inside people. Wow. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that...
The current imprint?
Yes, correct.
Of how we're processing and feeling about past events?
Past events. You got it. So that's the interesting thing. We can remember things from the past, and maybe we remember something from our childhood, and, can become a story that we tell and we move on. But we also could remember something and attach to it real emotions, real feelings that we feel today. That even right now, actually, if I'm being honest, when I was telling you that story, I started to feel a little nervous, a little shaky.
Heart rate
going up. So when you put yourself in that situation of the past, even just thinking about it or reliving it, or what we call trigger or activating, where our nervous system gets activated by a situation that out of our control, something reminds us of something in the past. We don't even realize what it's reminding us of, maybe. But our heart rate goes up. We start to sweat. Our hands clam up. That's where that is a trauma. That there's that is attached to something in the past that we are processing. And for the pastor nerds out there, it's interesting to me, the word trauma actually comes from Greek. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, it comes from Greek, the Greek word for wound. But it's gone on to mean more than just a physical wound, because we usually define trauma, and there's trauma centers or trauma hospitals,
Right.
or the trauma wing of a hospital, where it's usually like a head wound or a car accident or some physical accident,
Like a severe
something
accident,
very
not just
severe.
like a,
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about that is that it's something that even if 5-10 years down the road you might have healed and recovered from car accident, but you might still be recovering from it psychologically.
right.
What's interesting is that if we attach some physical reaction, or even just a raised heart rate or sweating, all of these physical reactions to something in the past, that's a trauma as well. So go ahead.
That's fascinating that you mentioned that it seems then that we use the word trauma a little bit too flippantly. I guess I should stop talking about my social media likes with the word trauma, right? It's like that's not what we mean by trauma, right?
Right, yeah.
It's like it's a direct connection to something very, very serious that happened, but it's our current interaction with it, and even like a physiological reaction to it.
Yes, that's a really great way of putting it. So I think what happens is a lot of times, and the traumatologists have now defined it as two different categories of trauma. Not that one is more or less than the other. They've kind of categorized them as big T or little t, or seen or unseen. I kind of like seen or unseen a little bit, because when you think about trauma, like we're sharing, even just more recent events, we think about the LA fires. Someone lost their home. That's a really traumatic experience. It's tragic. We think about
That is trauma.
Yeah, that's trauma. We see it on the news. We see the devastation. We see on the news war in Ukraine, war in Palestine and Israel, natural disasters, hurricanes in the East Coast, and
these are life-threatening things, right?
Life-threatening,
like
exactly.
life-altering.
You cut onto the definition. These are life-threatening. Whether someone lost their life or lost a loved one in that home, or potentially could have lost their home, but life-altering for sure. That like now people have to relocate, find a new home. People have to, pick up their lives and change their family setting. But even also can be domestic violence. Even though it's not public as the news, but it is it's publicly known that domestic violence is traumatizing. It's abuse. It has effects, and I think that as the public knows it more, there's more of a spotlight shed on it, so it's a little bit more seen in that sense in the public eye.
So would you say that trauma always has to be like physical or seen, or are there other forms of trauma that are unseen?
That's the interesting thing. Like my uncle, who decided that life wasn't worth living and killed his wife and kids. I wasn't there. I didn't get the phone call like my dad did, but I still experienced so much from that. I didn't even see it. There's police officers who saw that the bodies and saw a lot, but there's also
but you still
the unseen.
Receive the trauma, right? The personal reckoning of it.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. So a lot of traumas do go unseen, and that can be anywhere from neglect, emotional abuse, just because it's not physical. Emotional abuse or loss, whether it's a financial loss or loss of family members, or just a big heavy loss,
or like severe bullying. Would that be considered trauma?
Absolutely. Loss of social support, loss of social connection with friends, with peers, which so much of our teens, our youth go through. Failure, or even an abrupt move, a sudden change in life that is just altering.
Right.
So all of these also are considered traumas. The hard thing about them is, like I was mentioning, the news put the spotlight, or we know about war, we know about the fires, and those are traumas. But what tends to happen when we see those things? We tend to flock to them, right? We tend to recognize there needs to be fire aid, that we need to provide relief, we need to provide support. But often when it's a trauma that is unnoticed, there isn't that support.
Happens in silence.
People just
or sometimes
drift by.
Is it possible that people are experiencing trauma of neglect so much that they don't know it's not normal?
They think it's normal.
They think it's normal, right?
Right. So I think oftentimes those kinds of traumas are the ones that go on longer without getting help, without getting supports. We are quick to provide support to people that it's visible that they need it, and even give them time off from work, give them time to heal, to recover, time to spend time with their loved ones, to grieve. But the people that that we're not addressing that they need help, they're not addressing it themselves. They're having to carry this into their daily lives. These stressors, and they're highly activated. Their stress responses are on every single day, and they are just going back to work, just going back to school, just going on with their lives without addressing. And those are traumas that go on into 10, 20 years, 30 years. And we're wondering, why is this person so irritable? Why is this person so angry? Or why are they all of a sudden closed off and isolating? And we might even wonder, like, why are they weird? If we're honest, we're not. We might not say it, but we might think like they're a little off, they're strange, and maybe no one wants to talk to them.
So in pastoral ministry, or just in life in general, let's think you work for Amazon or whatever. Sure. We deal with extra grace required people. You know what I'm talking about? People who aren't the easiest to deal with. You're saying that it's possible that one of the reasons why people are a certain way, or they kind of rub us the wrong way, is possibly, not every time, right? But possibly it might be a reflection of a trauma that they're experiencing.
Absolutely. 100%. I think, I think something that I've maybe convinced myself enough, oftentimes when people either lash out or they're upset, it's really not because of the situation that you're having a conversation with them.
Right.
Unless you're really like being mean or something. But the reality is, like, we don't recognize what people bring into a conversation, what people bring into an interaction. And really what they're bringing in is all of the past, all of what they're going through, their stress responses. Maybe they're fight mode, and their stress is just saying danger, danger, danger. And I see every situation as danger, and I am just out here and going to ready for the attack.
Right.
Or maybe it's, flight, and I'm gonna escape, or even fawn, and I'm just gonna go along with whatever you're saying. But either way, like, oftentimes it's not an attack on a person or anyone, but it's really my response to what I'm going through, what I'm reacting to. And so, I think the hard part as pastors, as ministry leaders, is that we go through, we are in the ministry, in the business of people, of helping people, and we're all going through things. Every single one of us goes through, whether it is the daily challenges or it is the daily things that remind us of a past trauma. But we're all going through something, and as leaders, to navigate that is the
the challenge, right? Because we're dealing with stuff, they're dealing with stuff, and then it intersects in very interesting ways in the local church, and or the workplace. So I once heard it said that that despite the trauma that we experience, there are some people who are able to overwhelmingly have quote unquote productive, normal lives. Like, how is it possible? You think about, there are some people who went through the Holocaust, right? And or very different, lost people in 9/11, right? And some people are just changed forever. And people went through the exact same levels of trauma, but somehow they're able to have a really bright outlook on life. I mean, just look at you. You've experienced things that I could never even imagine. But here you are being willing to serve and to help others. How is it possible? How could we, despite our trauma, get to a place where we can have a great outlook on life and try to be a positive change for others?
Yeah. I think, what we see from those that have gone through something so tragic as the Holocaust and disasters. The first thing is that I see is that they recognize that. So it's, there's a saying that we said in the trauma center in Andrews is to name it is to tame it. And that's not just to, let me put a diagnosis on everything, but even just recognizing that thing is what is causing me harm. It's Holocaust, it's fire, it's violence, and not ignoring it, but recognizing there is a elephant in the room. There's a monster, and I'm going to name that monster.
Right. So do you think that's a helpful step for anyone in general? Is to do what, like an inventory, and to name? What do you mean by naming it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, naming it, as in recognizing what that is.
Okay.
Recognize what it is that if I am going through some sort of nervous system changes, if I am going through some stresses and I'm wondering what is going on with me, or why,
like if certain things
my spouse notices,
you're irritable against certain things, like to make a note of that. Is that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, I think that is a helpful thing. It's helpful to kind of recognize within ourselves, or even just having a helpful person that, without casting judgment, saying, hey, I noticed this situation or these things. And it doesn't necessarily mean a diagnosis or anything, but it means entering into certain topics or entering into something can be activating.
So like either like therapy certainly is a helpful outcome.
Which I think would be the next step. If we recognize what it is that if I recognize, there's something that is activating my nervous system, it's activating my stress response. I think we can't ignore that. I can't just go on with my life, or I can't just try to convince myself that, I'm gonna overcome that. We need helpers. As much as pastors are helpers, we also need helpers.
Right.
We need to receive the help as well. So I think being able to do that, and there's other things that we need for our basic needs. Like we were even saying we needed to eat before doing this, otherwise we'd be on a empty stomach and be hangry, right? But having good nutrition, having good sleep, honestly, good sleep. And I am so guilty of this, but I've noticed when I get good sleep, I'm in a better mood. I'm able to reflect and react better. Good nutrition, good water, drinking enough water.
So hydrating? You're, like in the conversation of trauma, being well hydrated?
Being well hydrated.
How is that?
Yeah, because our brains are made up of water. And we need good hydration just to be able to have good, healthy, active brains. If we're not, our brains get dehydrated and they get stressed out. Our brains get irritable. So if we have good hydration, we are able to have healthy, active, awake brains that are not so on edge or ready to react and respond and be frustrated.
Right.
Having good exercise is another big one.
Okay.
Exercise, good movement, even just for those that, I know pastors sit a lot in traffic, sit at the desk writing sermons,
Sit in board
meetings. sit on Zoom. So if between meetings, go out for a walk. Or if you're getting good sleep, get up in the morning and go for a walk. After dinner, having a good walk.
So exercise, it moves things along, right? It releases like endorphins. Is that part of it too?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And when our body is so overflooded, when our brain, our bodies, our nervous system is overflooded with cortisol, we're just constantly on that high stress energy. So being able to do these simple things, I know they seem simple, but it brings down our cortisol levels and we're able to function better. The other thing that I would say is sunshine, nature, spending time in nature, and we mentioned it, but counseling. Counseling is such a basic need, and the reality is, it is a basic need. Although we tend to stigmatize mental health, but the reason that it is a basic need is because we need each other. We need others. Right. We put on this superhero mentality as pastors, but we need help from others. And it's okay if it looks like professional help. Right. We'll make the jokes like, oh, I'll spend my money somewhere else. But if we're not talking about it and actually processing it, we're not able to actually heal. Yeah. So I want to mention 3 components for health and healing. Yes. Creating a safe environment, and that really can look like providing care, like receiving care. That's providing good connections and providing good safety for others, but for ourselves as well. And that's having good boundaries. That's having a good environment where I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb, and I'm going to sit with my spouse, or I'm going to really read a good book, or spend time listening to good music, going out for a walk. That also means being able to rest and practice deep breathing exercises, even just concentrating on breathing, practicing gratitude, singing with others. And I know that's a really big reason that I advocate for church, that where else do we sing with other people? And especially in a worship way where it's not about me or the people on the stage, but it's about our Heavenly Father, that it's about God. The other thing that I want to say is building relationships and connections. And this ties into a good, healthy environment, but creating healthy connections. And one of my favorite parts of church is, although I love the sermons and even worship, but one of my favorite parts that I've learned to really love, which I guess I just didn't have this element in church before, but was after the announcements, the welcome, and we do now let's turn and greet each other.
Greeting time, yeah.
That's the best. This last Sabbath, we had women's ministry, and they said, which was so appropriate to this conversation, they said, giving and receiving hugs is so important. So they challenged and they said, let's make sure we give hugs today. And of course, I think like in today's society, we have to be careful and say with consent. Right. With consent. And, especially not prolonging the hug or not making it awkward. Right. But
being appropriate with it, but physical touch
it's
can
important.
Be really, really healing. Right?
We need connection, and not just, hey, good to see you, handshake, or even just, hi, how are you, and leaving, but like developing connection. Studies have found that we need 4 hugs for survival, 8 hugs for maintenance, just maintaining. Wow. 12 for growth.
Wow.
So those of us that have spouses,
I'm about
12 hugs.
Like 11 hugs short today.
11 hugs short.
Yes.
So that's the challenge, right? At church, 12 hugs. But even just when your stress is so activated, have you received or given a hug? Have you had physical connection? Have you created that space for yourself, or are you just task after task after task, and you're not also receiving warmth and care and and showing that as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that matters most. I know as pastors, we also just really care about providing good care and providing good, I want to say, programming, services. And that's really important. It's good to have good hermeneutical, theological exposition of the Word of God. But if we are not connecting with others, we're not providing the warmth also. Relationships is what matters, I want to say, even more than a service, than a program. Relationships matter so much.
Wow. That's amazing. So as we kind of wind this topic down, which there's so many different avenues to go to. In fact, we're going to have you back. Yeah. Our next episode is going to be on a slightly different topic. But it sounds like what you're saying, yes, we may in life experience deep trauma and hurts. And while they may have a current effect on us, this community, the biblically instituted system of support that a worshiping and gathering community provides, almost in the Adventist system, with the emphasis on health and holism, almost uniquely provides a way for healing just to happen.
Absolutely. Right? And I think what we need is only just to be intentional, because we have it set up. We care for the whole person, but we just need to be able to address these things and be intentional in how we provide care.
A little more intentional, be a little bit more intentional about reaching out to others, developing relationships, just being gratitude, even stepping out into therapy if needed, and some of these other practices, I think gives us a lot of hope, and you give us a lot of hope, Isaí. Thank you so much for being with us, for showing us that it is possible to continue with a strong faith journey and a willingness to pour into others as you continue to heal yourself. Thank you for being with us, and this is going to wrap it up for us in this podcast. We want to invite you to subscribe. There's a lot more to discuss, a lot of other topics that we'll be exploring over the next few weeks, and you know how to do that. Just click on the appropriate button. Thank you so much for joining us, Isaí. Thank you for being with us today in this podcast. Absolutely. We'll see you soon.
See you.
Okay, bye-bye.